That's right. It's Let's Talk call-in radio. Public radio.
Public radio, yes.
On KWMR. And Shelley, I'm here in the studio with, I'm Paul Raphael. This is Shelley Rugg is with us, and Charles Schultz also. Oh, sorry.
Hello.
Go
That's
away,
my theme music.
Stop that, Adrian.
Well.
Please.
Yes, and this is Let's Talk, getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This on-the-air community forum believes that your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492, as long as the phones are working, or tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR.
Ooh, thank you, Shelley. And as you said earlier, hosts Paul Raphael, Shelley Rugg, and myself, Charles Schultz. The conversation today is about...
Well,
children.
I just called it children because it's easier to do the graphics that way. You just have one word. But really, it's about it's really about population, overpopulation, if you like, and choices that may have to be more consciously made as our effects on the world are becoming more and more evident. How many children is enough?
All right, Shelley, tell us about the kids. She confessed earlier.
Oh, yes, I'm a breeder.
So 1, 2, 3?
I have 2 children.
Well, that's very average.
And
very good.
And one
I'm
grandchild.
sure they're above
and
average
one
children,
grandchild, yes. Yeah.
But it's. I guess the point is that if we do believe in climate change, and if we do believe that people are actually causing climate change, global climate change, then isn't it kind of obvious that the more people we have, the worse it's going to get, and the quicker it's all going to come to an end? I mean,
isn't that more of a lifestyle thing, though? Isn't it the way things are consumed, not the actual number of people? And
I'm not seeing consumption going down, really.
No,
so if you're not going to consume less, maybe you should breed fewer consumers, if that's the only way we're going to do it. If we're not going to give up our lifestyle, our consumptive lifestyle, then what other option is there but to say, you can't have more than 2 children?
This is right. The problem with this kind of argument is if you accept that the overpopulation is the problem, then somebody's got to go.
Well, it's certainly a problem.
I think it's more of the way people live. I love these kind of statistics. I could just be making this up, but I had read that if we went back to a 1950 diet in the United States, you could double the population with the current amount of agricultural production. Half of all the food that is produced in the United States is thrown away. So it's a kind of crazy condition that we could do lots of things before we actually have to start killing people.
But we're not. But not about killing
Charles.
people. I mean, that's just another option. That's retroactive abortion. But if we could decide, could we not, if the worst came to the worst? For example, if we lived on an island, which we do, a big blue island.
What was the old phrase?
Space.
What was Buckminster Fuller's Spaceship Earth?
If you're in a finite sort of zone, if you're on a Pacific atoll and you're 100 miles from everywhere, I'm guessing they do not overpopulate the island because they have to provide. We have to provide. We are all providing for each other in various ways with taxes and money and paying corporations to look after us because they do that so well. And so it's that kind of thing. A conscious effort to try and control population. Now, the Chinese tried to do it, and of course, that has had terrible consequences.
Oh, a call.
30 million more males,
more men, yes.
I think the single scene is kind of rough in West Marin.
And by the way, do call in 415-663-8492 or 8317. We've been having phone line problems this morning, so If it doesn't work, you could try tweeting us at Let's Talk on KWMR. But we have a caller right now. Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please?
Good morning, all. It's MK.
MK.
Oh, hello.
How are you?
Hello. Children. I've devoted most of my adult life, and probably before that, to children, being a teacher for many years, and having several of my own. I have 3. I only planned on having 2, but you know how things are.
Sorry, Amanda.
That's okay.
Hard to learn your mistake on air. That's rough.
No, she was the first, so she was definitely
you
planned.
You think you would have learned your lesson?
Shut up, John. But my problem is that I know a lot of intelligent people who seem to either be having no children or are very reluctantly having 1 or 2 children. And then you go to the supermarkets and the stores and places and you see throwback people with carts full of marshmallows and potatoes and white food and 9 children straggling along. And it seems to me that there's a mindlessness that's happening there, whereas the intelligent ones can see climate change and see what's going to happen pretty clearly. But it's just, I think that we need smart people in order to continue. And so I'm not encouraging anybody to go out and breed, but.
What do you mean? I love all 9 of me children.
So this does sound a little eugenicified, if I might say.
Well, I think
it's a little cold-blooded, but that's the way I look at it. It's like you get a whole bunch of people who are just going to go out and have more children.
But then
that are thinking are going to be educated and be scientists and be compassionate and try to make things better.
Well, you also have the Christian faction who are very purposefully breeding to enlarge their numbers so they can take over the world.
Well, yeah, the Mormons, right?
Well, the Christians, too.
Yeah, the fundamentalists, evangelicals.
Yeah. Yes.
I had some Mormon friends who said when they grew up, they saw there was a cartoon that everybody watched, and it was great. They just gave me great details from it. A good woman is worth 8 cows. I was like that. How about that? Yeah. Well,
so MK, how many is too many then? I mean, isn't it depending on financial service?
I don't know if you can afford them. I mean, it's a question of being able to provide good basic. A good basis for their lives.
There are a couple of things in there, MK. One of them is from the boomers on, there was, especially among liberal elites, an idealization of, quote, self-expression. And so anything that interrupts your ability to express yourself, like having to care for someone else and think about what they need rather than what you need, is in a way a loss. There's an old sort of existentialist joke. Children are our existence' most cruel joke. You support them all their lives and then they outlive you. And I think that, knowingly or unknowingly, that plays a role in the reason why people especially the sort of elite do not have as many children or any children at all. The other thing is economic. What I see in a lot of women my age is that they equate raising children with the lifestyle that they were raised in, which is extremely expensive. And since they're unlikely to be as wealthy as their parents and be able to spend, $40,000 a year on prep school from age 5 preschool, from age 5 on, have expensively warehouse your children so that they don't interrupt your self-expression too much. A lot of people in my generation who are raised that way are not going to be able to do that themselves, and so I think that what they think of as having children or child rearing is a lifestyle or that they can't participate in, so they don't have kids. They don't think they can afford them.
Well, I know about trophy children because I worked in private education for many years and saw these people driving up in their Porsches and dropping their kids off at 6 in the morning and picking them up at 6 at night to go off and, go to the Bahamas or wherever. And a lot of those kids were being basically raised by child care staff who were getting paid $6 an hour. And, we're very nice people, but not perhaps most intellectually stimulating. Mm-hmm. So, it was a really a mixed bag. They have these kids in dress.
Uh-oh. You broke up there. I would say, you see in San Francisco as child as extension of self-expression or lifestyle brand, right? So the mommy bloggers, those people. If we want to talk about who we need to depopulate first, well, we could round them up. These people who the child is a reflection of their wealth and power and whatever.
I just lost you, but I got you back.
Oh, yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for calling back.
So the child is just another thing to dress up. It's another thing to brag about what school you got.
Possession.
Yeah, it's a thing, and the thing is supposed to make you look good. Now this goes back
but then you're talking about a demographic. These are wealthy people who can afford to have as many kids as they want, which, on the face of it, in the purely financial sense, seems like the right thing to do. No? You were talking earlier about people with 8 kids at Walmart, Yeah, right.
But we had a really great time.
Uh-huh.
Most of the time. I spent a lot of time. I was very young when I had my kids, so I was kind of a kid. And we had really a good time, and they learned how to buy their prom dresses at thrift stores and
even the boys,
and how to make do, and they learned how to figure stuff out. Which is one of the reasons why your director is such a great person, is because, well, not necessarily because of me, because we survived.
We know it's all because of you.
Yeah, I'll give you the credit. No, you
I don't know. But, yeah,
well, I get it.
You were always there.
But so then it's not a financial decision necessarily.
Not necessarily. It's a quality. And I was raised on my father was a surgeon, but that didn't mean we had a lot of money. I was raised on a wonderful, great big farm, and I had all sorts of freedom, and but not a lot of possessions. And we just, I think that the example that's set for you is very important. But this business of being able to, having money be everything is just ridiculous, because it doesn't do anything. It makes you hollow.
Well, there's another thing here, MK, in terms of contemporary psychology, which is that any limit that you place on yourself, in essence, refers to the kind of ultimate limit. It refers to death. And so people want to maintain this idea that they will always have the option to do whatever they want, if they want to travel, if they want to do this, that, or the other thing. There's this feeling that you have to escape definition, and a child is defining, right? A child is all of a sudden your life and all of the wonderful things you want to do become less important in comparison to what, you're going to have to do for this child.
Ideally.
Ideally. Well, yeah.
A lot of times, there isn't any resentment. I think a lot of times that works.
Oh, well, no, people crave definition. I think that's the madness of this age, is that actually it's freedom from, not freedom to. Maybe in 1950 people were desperate for the freedom to do all sorts of things. I think today freedom is selecting the way in which you're going to limit what you do. So, I have a pretty fabulous life, but I don't travel. I don't go anyplace.
You don't have any children yet.
I don't have, no. But although I've done this joke on this show before. From Flint, Michigan, the population never changes. Mm-hmm. Every time a child's born, a grown man leaves town. And here I am. But so that's a limit. It's selecting what you're going to limit yourself with. But yeah, examples of child rearing. Good Lord, Wes Marin.
Okay.
The artist formerly known as Dad. There's also the types.
Okay.
What was that?
Well, it's singling out Wes Marin. Really?
Yeah. That's where we live. You want to live someplace else? Go to Fairfax.
Is this really any different? Really? No.
Well, that is such a false argument.
It's a microcosm. Come on,
it's ridiculous.
Shelley, you were going.
Well, I guess since I have been a mother, and at one point I became a single mom, and I was really struggling. I definitely agree that parenting is more challenging than any soon-to-be mother will ever imagine or be able to imagine. But I made the choice to have children because I wanted to have a full experience of my personhood.
I agree.
And I also would add that now that my children are grown, I continue to learn about myself through my children.
That's absolutely important and very, very, very good point.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, women of my generation younger, they also have a tremendous pressure to be a careerist, right? To be some kind of, usually horrible. They're not focused on, am I doing good things or bad things? It's just, I need to have a career and advance myself. And so that would interrupt the ability to do things like be a mother.
I mean, I think with the onset of feminism and women joining the workforce, being able to earn a living, it also changed our whole economic structure so that now it's pretty much a requirement that both parents have a job, unless one of them has an exceptionally large paying job. It's just the economy has shifted so drastically.
Another reason to limit the number of children that you might have.
Or you could just be poor, but I haven't been able to convince any women of that as a real option up to this point.
And so limiting, like for these people that we perceive as being less educated and having more children, that may or may not be the cause of them having so many children. Lack of education, maybe lack of resources, lack of access to services, and with like Planned Parenthood getting potentially defunded, that's just going to get worse.
Yeah, the right is actively getting rid of, they would much prefer not to talk about contraception at any age, and certainly to take sex education out of schools. I mean,
but we also
and defund every
and then we're about to lose our educational
family
system.
Well, the educational system was developed for the last 150 years just to warehouse children so that people could work, right?
Right, and also it's the responsibility of parents to be educators. I mean, come on.
I don't, it gets to homeschooling. I don't think, a lot of women feel competent to do it.
It doesn't mean, she didn't mean
to be interested in things and share your knowledge. I mean, that's what teaching's about. My career, such as it was pretty funny because my kids, Amanda and her sister, were going to this Montessori school, and I had a younger one at home, and which showed up at school one day, and the helper didn't show up, and they were making applesauce. Well, I grew up on 400 acres of apples in New England, and so I certainly knew how to make applesauce. So I showed up and stayed and never looked back, and then got the training to be a Montessori teacher. And my children went to school with me, so that took care of, child care and after-school care until they were in the upper elementary grades. And then one day the car got way too small, and they sent them off to public school, and they did fine.
Did you have to work?
On with my teaching, so.
Oh.
Yeah, she was teaching.
It worked out well.
Yeah.
Didn't make any money, but it was a lot of fun.
There you go. See, wonderful memories of motherhood, of young children. And how Charles and I are missing out on this parenting thing. I've never had children because thanks to the wonderful women in my life who've been very sensible about that and knew from the beginning that I was too irresponsible.
It's never too late, Paul. It is never too late.
Oh,
Hey, you might surprise yourself too. Well, I think at this point, probably not. But
call if anyone wants to have Paul Raffel's baby, call in, and we'll see what we can arrange.
You're pretty cute, Paul.
There you go.
Am, yes, that's true.
Okay, I'm going to get off and let somebody else call in. But it's good to talk to you. And
thank you, MK. That was
good for you.
Wonderful.
Carry on.
Thanks.
Carry on. Bye.
Carry on.
Thank you, MK.
Bye.
Yeah, there are a lot. Well, one, we've set up an economy which children don't make any sense. It is no help to have children. In fact, it interrupts your ability to.
So there you are. It's the reason for having broods of children was, first of all, because most of them were going to die. Caller, could you turn off your radio, please? We can hear it in the background. And working on farms.
Yeah.
Back then,
you
always needed labor, and you needed someone who was going to grow your food for you when you were too injured or old to work. And so, yes, huge families made sense.
Well,
now,
before electrical appliances, right? There was all kinds of work.
At least 54% of the global population is now urban.
Hey.
54%. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please? And keep it clean.
I think my name is Biff.
Oh, another Biff.
This is the second
Biff
in as many weeks. Yes, Biff.
And I've learned I'm going to keep it clean.
Good. Excellent.
I would be quietly listening, except that if I wasn't shuddering.
Ah.
This conversation is, what's the old word, conniptions?
Okay.
You're having a fit.
I was having a fit listening, yeah.
Okay.
Why is that?
You're overthinking this. I have children, and when you get together with somebody else, you don't say, do you feel like reproducing yourself so that when you die, you don't think that way. You talk to somebody, hey, would you like to have children? And say, yeah, I'm glad I'm with somebody that wants to have children. It's an emotional thing. It's not intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody sits down and said, well, I think my time's come. I better get moving.
I think maybe people do today.
But it's actually emotional. If it wasn't that, we would have less children. But it is emotional, and this business of judging whether or not someone has the right to have children because they have more money and they're not buying crappy food, and so if you buy crap food, then you can't have kids. If that were the case, nobody would have children in this country.
Ah.
I don't think we can judge somebody based on these these personifications of these stereotypes. It's a question of whether somebody's going to be a good parent or not. And lots of people have children that shouldn't be parents, and a lot of people have children that should. And a lot of people don't have children, rightly so. And again, it's a huge industry for people who want to have children and can't. But your question that you raised in your introduction is, what happens? We're major polluters. We're the most populous nation on the planet in relationship to use of natural resources. And that's why it was so ridiculous when back in the old days they were talking about reducing the population out there. It was kind of a colonialism. One Indian was equal to one person was equal to 10 Indians. So who needs to reduce their population?
Well, it's a lifestyle thing. Constant air travel is probably one of the worst things you can do in terms of destroying biodiversity, destroying the environment, becoming a kind of shallow, placeless human being.
So if you fly to visit your grandchildren, that's really a no-no.
Well, so actually, the best thing you can do to reduce your carbon footprint is to not have one child.
Hey, here we go.
Yeah, no, I'm talking to America here.
America.
What, another little driver? Is that what it is?
But the people who fly don't have kids, or if they do, they're severely neglected children. I don't know. The thing is, you could raise that child differently. What Paul's saying is based on what kind of lifestyle that child is going to lead. What is it going to do?
Well, it's as here we go. The greatest impact individuals can have in fighting climate change is to have one fewer child, because you can change your light bulbs, you can drive an electric car, you can fly less, you can take one less transatlantic trip per year. It's all nothing compared with the carbon footprint of a person. My carbon footprint.
But what about all those cows?
Well, no, I'd like to look at the
assumptions. Exactly. Actually, they took that into account. If everyone went if you won't go vegetarian, it's still not. It's there.
I'd like to look at the assumptions behind that calculation, but I will give a plug.
Less Americans. Americans are the people that have the high carbon footprint.
Absolutely. It's the highest carbon footprint per capita in the world. China is a greater polluter, but...
The problem isn't too many children in Somalia.
No. Absolutely not. No, I'm addressing America.
But let me plug for a moment the Eat Your Pets party, which did come out with a statistic I love, that feeding a medium-sized dog for a year is the equivalent of buying a new Toyota truck and driving it 10,000 miles in that year. So Eat Your Pets is the solution that I'd like.
That's another one.
Exactly. We could go Jonathan Swift if you want. We can go to the next level if the pet eating thing doesn't work. But let's try that first.
Anyway, Stephen, so you're
Shelley, what were you thinking?
You're appalled by the conversation so far, but
well, no, it's starting to get better now that I'm online.
Very good.
I cannot but agree. Where are we now? Let's see.
I'll tell you where I'm at. It's in the population explosion has crossed the line where it can be where we can correct something that is going to have ultimate benefit to the planet. We passed that line. They project that there'll be 2 billion more people on the planet by 2060, 1 billion in sub-Saharan Africa, another billion in India, two places that can use those people the least. So if we do everything right here, you're still talking about all those little wood fires where they're heating up their little piece of lamb or whatever it is, major polluting source in Africa. They go around creating these little special stoves to give to everybody because they're all cooking their stuff on
open fires inside a
but that's not a
dwelling.
driver of pollution. I mean,
no, it's not.
The machines are what caused it.
It's killing the families.
With me, I think we've passed the point of no return.
No, look, it's too late now because it was always too soon when we tried to do something serious about it in the past, and everybody here was looking at their toes and making magazines about leaves. There are things that could be done, but all the people who didn't want to do them then are now saying it's too late to do them now. And so I don't believe it. I don't believe that it's not too early, it's not too late, which is the title of an interview I did with Paul Fenn. You can look up on Point Reyes Light's website.
And that's one of the things I admire about you.
Well, thank you. But I'd say the thing is, it's the machines. China had almost no carbon footprint 35 years ago. The machines are what drive this. Right now, what you need to do, there are two ways to go, or two common paths. One is the Buckminster Fuller, Stewart Brand path, and that is you need to force everybody into the cities and off the land and have GMO crops to feed this huge urban population. It's the only thing we can do about climate change. And in Brand's case, build nuclear power plants all over the world to power these megacities. But the cause of destruction of the rainforest and the impact of it is not small-scale agriculture. It is not people with their little wood fire. It's mega industrial agriculture to build or to grow soya, to raise cattle for export, et cetera. So you have to think about the trade. Now, somebody yelled at me. She's got a vegan ranch. I don't know what that means in Nicasio. Do you know what that is? The vegan ranch, vegan cheese. It's in the newspaper. Anyway, she got really upset with me at the hearing for the ranch slaughter because I said, look, the primary carbon impact of our food is transportation. It is not. It is moving all of that feed and those animals around in trucks, in ships, and. If you're eating melon in the Bay Area in the middle of winter, that is coming from Chile. That is coming from South America. So that is the hidden carbon footprint of the groupie lifestyle.
It's coming out the rear end of a cow.
They say that. I don't buy it. That's nonsense. The oceans are dying. All these people would eat fish. You could actually ethically and environmentally responsibly raise animals for slaughter on land. The whole thing of the pescatarians are much worse in my mind. As soon as I saw sushi in Flint, Michigan, I realized, the oceans are done. Huh?
So the applicable phrase was that you just said was all these people. That's what it all comes back to, right? It really is, isn't it?
People.
We are overpopulated. The world is overpopulated, and it's grown. The global population has grown threefold in my lifetime.
It is certainly an issue.
2.5 billion.
Yeah, it's definitely a piece of the puzzle, but it's hard to say that it's the thing. Do you really think it is above,
I think if you start with that as the proposition, you're not going to get to a good answer. You're going to get to something pretty ugly, which is authoritarian.
Like war, you mean? It seems like we're increasing population. We've got plenty of wars going on, so
certainly do.
Certainly not reducing the population.
But okay, you need to think about solutions in a way that isn't going to lead to some kind of authoritarian nightmare. All of these solutions to climate change, et cetera, would require the mega state to directly govern the lives of the world. And I hate that.
And what? That point.
Yeah, that's a very valid point, and it sounds awful. But what is the alternative? Are people actually going to be conscious about how many humans they bring into the world?
And are we moving away from the land of the free here?
Oh, totally. But I mean, when you educate, they say educate women, the amount of children they have goes down, right? So that's a huge issue.
Or if you just make contraception available. I talked to a world-renowned public health expert, scientist who goes around the world teaching, and he said, you give You give the average Indian woman from a village, you give her the means to have fewer children. She will have fewer children. She doesn't need to have an education, whatever that means. All you had to do is give her the availability of this thing.
I think the idea,
and they will do it.
I think the idea of educating is better than just put a giant condom over the Indian subcontinent.
Well, I'm just saying it's not as difficult as having to try to educate 7 billion people.
Right.
Right.
Well, it could be dangerous to
that's
educate
a
women,
lifetime.
So.
Meanwhile, they're having children.
You
right?
know, even if you're educated, you're still a human being,
exactly,
and you still can make bad choices, even if you are smart.
But I like that. I like the indeterminacy of it. It's a choice. I hate the idea of forcing people to live this way rather than that.
Nobody wants to see it, but what is the... So we do have another caller, but caller, if you can stay on the line just for a moment, I have to do a station break. This is KWMR in Point Reyes Station, 90.5, 89.9 Bolinas, 92.3 San Geronimo Valley, and streaming online, kwmr.org. And Susan Hayes is one of our wonderful underwriters. Susan Hayes, purveyor of local and American-made artisan clothing, supports KWMR, offering hand-loomed wraps, scarves, and sweaters made in Point Reyes Station, as well as American-made and fair-trade clothing and jewelry. Open daily at 4th and B Street in Point Reyes Station in the Tamales Bay Foods building. Online at SusanHayesHandwovens.com. And programming also underwritten by Toby's Feed Barn on Main Street in Point Reyes Station, offering hay and feed, garden supplies, gifts, fresh bread and produce, and fine art in Toby's Gallery. Toby's is home to the Community Garden, Toby's Coffee Bar, Yoga Toes Studio, and the Saturday Farmers Market during the summer. Thank you to our wonderful underwriters and all our members and our callers. And caller, you are on the air. What's your name, please?
This is Charlie. I'm from the FCC, and I wanted to make sure you did the station ID.
Thank you so much.
Guys, wonderful to hear you. I kind of lucked out in my life. Today is the birthday of my youngest adopted son.
Aha.
I had relationships with 2 women, and they had these precious young boys there. I adopted my youngest son, Jubal, who went to school, and actually he was on the same class or the same team as Max Hurwitz.
No.
But anyway, today's his 34th birthday.
Wow.
And I adopted him when he was 3, when I met his mom, my wonderful partner, Sherry. And my older son, Jamie, who I just saw with his daughter up in Arcata, I adopted when he was 6. And, that I sort of lucked out on the urge to be a parent, because I know maybe Shelley can comment on this. The mother of my eldest son said she never felt more natural or more in the groove than when she was growing a baby inside her, which actually, that's nature, and it's a tough one to beat. But anyway, my word is adopt. There are plenty of children on the planet, and every once in a while some idiot will come up to me and I'll say, well, I adopted my 2 kids, and they'll say, well, who's their real father? And I'll say, well, you're looking at them, because I'm the one who raised them.
Right.
And, all glory goes to their mothers, of course. But I just wanted to throw that out there, because there are lots of babies, there are lots of kids here who need parenting. And I think one of you mentioned, how the child was raised was the most important thing, and I have to go along with that. So that's the word I'll leave you with is adopt. Anyway, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks for calling in, Charlie.
Thanks for being a good dad,
Oh,
too.
Shelley, I'll see you Sunday, too.
Oh.
Yeah, 10 by 10.
All right, bye-bye.
What does that mean?
We have no idea what this means.
Code. That was code.
Well, I produce a show.
So you're plugging the show?
Thanks to Charlie,
Ah.
because Charlie's going to be on the show. I imagine storytelling, and he's been developing his storytelling skills every 3 months at the 10 by 10 show that's happening this Sunday at the Dance Palace Church Space.
I think I've read about this. So Sunday, the Dance Palace Church Space, 10 by 10. And can you tell us a tiny bit more about that?
So 10 by 10 means 10 performances that are each 10 minutes in length.
Excellent.
Or less, and it costs $10 to
Wow.
go to the show, and it starts at 7.
10 by 10 by 10 at 7.
This Sunday.
This Sunday.
This Sunday.
Yeah.
Stevie, excuse me, Biff, are you still on the air?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you are. Good. Excellent.
All right, Biff. Wonderful. So please do call 663-8492 to express your opinion about children. And in particular, are we having too many?
Please? You want me to take my leave?
No, if you'd like to stay, please, you're very welcome to stay.
You guys are always fun to hang around.
At long distance.
That's right. He likes it a lot better when he's up on the ridge.
But so, yes, so we were saying, of course, nobody likes the idea of a government telling people what they can do with their lives, but really, isn't that what governments do?
Well, I mean, the idea, yeah, in practice, but in theory, we have the capacity, hopefully, for self-government, and what you would want to do is create examples of that really working in terms of, localities figuring out how they're going to replace, fossil fuels in their source of their electricity and in transportation, et cetera. Okay, those are questions, and it might be difficult, and but it's possible. And if you can create a working example of something, you can convince other people to adopt it. And so there are two options. You either kill all the Indians and the Chinese, right? Or we set a new
not
example.
The problem, though.
Or kill all the Americans.
Yes.
Which I'm more for, to be honest. But especially if I can draw up the list.
You made a really good point back there, though. I don't want to lose that.
Okay, what?
Which good point?
Yeah, go.
That is that our culture right now glorifies families. Really, having children is more the story out there is to have children, whereas what you were suggesting is we need to change that story.
Well, no, I'm not saying. I mean, look, every species that has survived to this point, in some sense, glorifies having children. It's just kind of part of the deal in terms of how
it's nature. Yeah.
Yes,
it's nature.
But I'm saying if you learn to deal with these resource questions collectively and on a local level, you could create examples of ways to live that are much less impactful. I hate that word, but have a much less impact on the environment, et cetera. And other people can use those as examples and adopt those kind of things. Unfortunately, what we have is all of the kind of artsy, crafty, cool stuff about places like West Marin, like the wonderful food, which is amazing and grown by lots of our neighbors and delicious, best food I've ever had. The reason that those kinds of operations can thrive, one of the primary reasons, is they can sell their produce for an extremely high price. Who can pay for it? Well, the people whose wealth comes from the global economy and the globalized financial world.
And who is going to make a difference to that but somebody's children? Right?
I guess I'm just saying that,
So everyone, I said this in the blurb, and Stephen disagreed with my phrasing, but doesn't every mother, every father think that their kids are going to grow up and be something special, and maybe they could be president, or they could change the world in some way?
I'll share some honesty.
Yeah.
You set the bar low for your kids.
I grew up in a very challenging situation. I had a really hard time in my family life. And so I think part of the drive for me was actually to see if I could do a better job, honestly.
Right.
It was
very laudable.
So.
And do you think you did?
Actually, yes.
Well done. There you
Thank
go.
you.
It doesn't really matter what they do, but they're contributing members of the human race in some way? I mean, they're wonderful, wonderful people.
Or do you regret everything?
Of course, they're wonderful people. I do. My oldest daughter, she became a single mom. And didn't have a job, and really was up against it. And no matter how many services might be available, you really can't live on the government handouts. You just really cannot.
Right.
And luckily, she had family that could help her. And now she is working and paying rent and has a good partner, and things have turned around for her.
Excellent.
So I'm really happy about that.
So she fought her way out of a desperate situation, kind of.
Yeah, she still is. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Well, so there was a decision that could have been made earlier on, right?
There was, and we did talk about it as a family.
And decision was that the family would kind of support her while she...
Okay, so here's some more truth. The family, along with a therapist, we were in a serious situation to talk about her life moving forward, and we discussed that if she went through with having this child, that it would impact the entire family around her. Right. That it was beyond her choice and her decision, that it actually would impact all of us, and it has. But looking back to my own motherhood, I know that you cannot imagine the reality of parenting and everything involved. And when mothers imagine being mommies, it usually looks really sweet.
Yeah, it's mummies, right?
Yeah, it's super sweet, and a baby is so adorable.
Of course they are, otherwise we'd eat them.
And then I guess some people do.
Eat their children?
Not their children.
Oh, others.
Yeah, a very creepy, underworldy thing. You haven't heard about that?
No.
Oh, God.
Where are these cannibals at? I'm guessing West Marin.
You probably have to go on what's it called, the dark web, to find out about this. But
No.
This has taken quite a turn. I love this.
Children, they grow up, of course, and they
fatten them up.
Can be really hard to deal with because they can bring up family patterns.
Right.
That you are trying to overcome.
Yeah.
And it's always harder than you imagine. And also back to the idea of, farming out your kids to daycare or to the school system or whatever, that can seem like a good option, and then you're missing out on, connecting with those kids and like MK said, really imparting your own experiences and knowledge and joy to your children directly.
Yeah, well, now they get it all from the screen.
Yeah, well,
oh gosh, yes.
It's a terrible problem. But I mean, for until the last 150 years, the idea that you would hand your children to strangers to be raised would have been extraordinary. Nobody could have imagined something.
Well, they did
like
it back in slave days all the time.
Which slave days are these?
When they had slaves.
In the South, they'd sell the kids off.
Oh, well, sure.
They handed their children off to be suckled.
Right.
True, that's
and
true.
Raised.
Yeah,
I'm
and
just saying
that's the community. That's the extended family, right?
Right, but that would have been thought, and is still thought, one of the most brutal and horrifying aspects of American chattel slavery. Right, it wasn't celebrated at the time that they separated the children from their parents. It's considered one of the horrors of slavery in the United States. What it was is in the North. It happens in 4 places: the United States, England, France, and Prussia. Is the rise of factory economies that require displacement from the home, and also require a certain kind of worker that the schools were designed to produce. And that is somebody who responds to bells and can do boring and tedious things for long periods without complaint, and all the things our wonderful schools teach children. The cruelty of it is, of course, those jobs no longer exist, right? So we put them through the same process, and then on the other side of it, there's no factory.
Get a college education and what?
Well, look at me. Those books did nothing for me.
How do you
you sound good.
Not to complain, Charles?
How do I teach whom not to complain?
You said they were raising them not to complain. How do you do that?
Oh, well, you break their spirit, basically. You convince, that, I mean, that's what the evolution of the modern, school classrooms is all about. It's about control people, to lower their expectations, to keep them incompetent. They never know quite enough. I mean, it's how you get somebody to not think of factory work as absolutely soul-crushing and meaningless and destructive. Well, you break their spirit when they're quite young.
There's a wonderful song by Richard
Save
Thompson.
the planet, though, don't we have to lower people's expectations?
No, casual conversation, West Marin does that. I
Well,
think, for most
Lauren, here's we got an email. If you don't want to call in, you could always email info@culturalpotholes.com. 1 in 8 Americans now lives in California. Little wonder there are not enough jobs and places to live. Virtually all pressure against population control efforts worldwide comes from religions, yet this is almost never mentioned in the press. There you are.
Oh, really? I mean, I think people are aware of that.
Yeah.
Well, there's also another issue with loss of jobs, and that is all the jobs that get sent out of the country. I don't know why that's not addressed more, because...
Well, I mean, that's just the arc of both Democratic and Republican policy on the economy.
And automation as well.
Well, automation and also open borders and the free flow of capital around the world, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a disaster. And there are things that we could do about it, but I think hoping for something on the national level to happen in that way, positive progress on the national level, is probably forlorn. But we can do things locally.
Ronald Reagan.
What's that? You remember Bill Clinton?
Well, it seems that the Ronald Reagan policies are coming back with not doing anything to help people
I'm sorry.
in population.
Oh, with the population? Well, I don't know. I mean, just back to the single mother thing, welfare to work, remember that? That was Bill Clinton, and welfare now...
to export contraceptives to the rest of the world, and Reagan said, no, we can't do that.
Oh, that's right. No, and that's actually, that's congressional, too, that you're not allowed to provide foreign aid that's connected to
contraception, certainly,
abortion.
and contraception, and
women's
health. We don't want healthy women.
I think Congress passed that, to be honest. Not that, Ronnie was just
the women are going to take over the world.
Exactly,
yeah, right.
They are.
It's coming back, though. They're now they're refreshing it.
Yes,
Trump.
Oh, yes.
Well, we colonized the world and destroyed subsistence ways of living so that we could tie those people into the global economy, so they could work in our sweatshops, so they could wash our dishes, and
we can sell our fertilizers, which created the 4 billion. We couldn't have 4 billion without fertilizers, and they're, of course, a finite resource, the phosphorus, and that's going away.
Yeah, well, and so you took people. I mean, you can just go into Ivan Illich's writing about his experiences in Mexico and Puerto Rico. You took people that were self-sufficient and given a great dignity through their self-sufficiency, being self-sufficient, and they now have to have automobiles and roads and then gasoline for the owner. All of a sudden, they're dependent. And that's we live in a culture of extreme dependence. That's why things like The Matrix, I think, was such a popular metaphor, was such a popular movie. But yeah, another reason people aren't having children is we've gone through perceived expense, all of the kind of psychological, and there's a reason to have them. They're just going to interrupt your good time. Won't be able to go to Bali, and I really want to go to Bali.
That was my reason.
That was your, you did go to Bali, didn't you?
I don't think that's true.
Oh, you can take the kids to Bali if you're really rich, I guess.
But I don't think people say, I want to go to Bali, therefore I'm not going to have a child.
No, it's
what's bad for the economy too. It makes you
allegorical.
It makes you a bad consumer. That's another thing to think about when you're dedicating money to practical resources for your children. You're not consuming at the same level as a single person.
No.
There's a huge industry around children.
Well, sure, but you're not buying high-end consumer products for yourself. You're doing things like buying more food. Right?
You're buying stuff for your kids.
Well,
if
you're one of those,
another iPhone, you're buying another.
So they've wired them in now. So you need the kids so maybe capitalism likes the kids now.
Of course. Always did.
I don't.
More customers. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Well, that rose in the 80s.
They teach them young.
Right.
Yeah.
To nag their parents.
They market to the kids from the day they're born. Yeah.
Everything from food to.
I'm going to sign off. But,
okay.
Take care.
I'd rather have a child than a dog.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's a tough one.
I remember that song. That was good.
Take care, Biff.
Thank you, Biff.
And this is KWMR.
Do call in. We have a few minutes. 415-663-8492. Just weigh in on this subject of how many children is enough.
So rather have a child than a dog. So, there is the issue of family, right? Originally, we were in villages because we all took care of each other.
Sure.
And we took care of the babies and the old people in the village.
And there were rituals for bringing children into the world and rituals for people who were dying as well that were not just the nuclear family. Again, that was a pejorative, right? Just saying this little atom with its electrons whizzing around. It was a whole village. There was a whole sort of integrated life.
Since we don't have that, the least thing we have is the nuclear family.
Which is just not enough, frankly. It really isn't. And Margaret Thatcher said there is no society, only individuals and families. But you have to understand, people will in our culture, we do have a private ethics, but we have no sense of public ethics or morality. So it's wrong to cheat on your wife, to beat your wife, to beat your children, to blah, 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 right? We think of those as being really awful. We hear about it happening. We feel revulsion and disgust for the perpetrator and empathy or sympathy for the victim. We have no such way of defining what we do publicly. So Daddy works for Chevron, but that's just what Daddy has to do to pay for the family. So you're not going to get a more ethical world by focusing on the family, at least the way we do it, because it becomes the imperative. You have to support the family, so you do whatever you have to do in order to do that. And so that's working for any monstrous corporation, working in the military, working as, building missiles. I mean, it's all fine as long as you're supporting the family. So actually, the family is a bit of a trap if that's where we're focusing our ideals.
Well, yeah, and it's our programming, that makes all those jobs okay. And I think it's hard to be aware in this culture because the way marketing comes at us, and we want to believe, we want to believe what they're telling us. I mean, look at the pharmaceutical industry. They are marketing like crazy. And even in their ads, they're telling you how you could die from using their product.
Oh, the list of the symptoms is ridiculous.
We're born with this sense that you have to trust people who are...
Right.
Especially people who are giving you things or selling you things, And, of course, used car salesmen, for example, have been playing on that forever, and insurance companies.
And the pharmaceuticals make an intolerable way of living tolerable. People are lonely and isolated, and that's not the way humans, I think, at least healthy humans should live. And they are managing this loneliness and this isolation and alienation, even in urban settings. Even one thing you learn about New York City pretty quickly, if you live there, is it's a very lonely place. And everybody else is lonely, too. So you got a pill for that. It's not actually change the conditions that are causing the problem. You medicate it. You have therapy.
Well, and then also, joining the military is another example. There's a lot of really well-meaning young people or desperate people who really need a job, but the well-meaning young people who really genuinely believe that they're fighting for our freedom and to, protect our country. And if they actually knew what the whole war mechanism is all about, they might rethink that. But
well, when they find out about it.
Yeah, I mean, most of them come back and go, oh, yeah. Well, we just have a few minutes at the top of the show. If we don't get another caller, I wanted to mention Todd Friend passed away, yesterday, it was believed to. And
they haven't recovered the body yet.
Yeah, but 45 years, I think he was out here and on the bay. How many days of those 45 years? Yeah. A fair number of them. So it's sad news for the local community.
Very sad out there.
Yeah, his family and obviously, and the whole place. He was a very, very well liked person. So. Anyhow.
Anyway, so let's have a quick vote. Limit the number of children anyone can have, regardless of income or education.
Opens a whole can of worms now, doesn't it? Because if we do that, we have to do a whole lot of other things. You have to control.
Yeah, no, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare vision.
So we're getting 2 no's, yeah.
I just think if you want to achieve those kinds of things, you would think about how practically to rewire, to use a cheesy expression, the way that these places that we live in function. Westminster does not exist without Wall Street. It does not exist without oil. It does not exist without global exploitation of the poor. Right? Where do you think these people's money comes from? And so if you want that to be different, well, then we have to think practically about changing, making different kinds of decisions, raising a tax, as we were discussing at the Board of Supervisors, and using that revenue to invest in or rebuild the place we live.
Taxing
babies,
children, instead of giving tax breaks.
Well, that's an interesting thing too. I mean, during and after the war, it happened in a lot of developed countries. It happened in Germany, famously, but also in the Soviet Union. Which is the state paying mothers to have more children.
Yeah.
But initially, the Bolsheviks
they do here. I mean, through tax.
Yeah. Well, and the Bolsheviks immediately legalized abortion. Immediately made a divorce. Just whatever on demand. Whatever. Blah, blah, blah. And when Stalin gets in, they say, we actually want to build our population up. All that stuff changes. And the legalized abortion and divorce and stuff gets more and more difficult.
So it could be, as a parting word, I like to get the last word in.
We'll see.
It could be that this having children, I mean, it's a natural thing, but the desire to have more children could be driven by the government itself, by centralized government and by corporations.
Or vice versa. When in the 80s in Romania, they were trying to basically sell all of the agricultural produce of the country they could to pay off their foreign debt, which meant that there was essentially a state-sponsored sort of semi-famine there. And so there it was illegal for women to get pregnant. Famously, the Romanian orphanages and stuff like that, and people saw in the 90s. So it can go both ways. But no, you don't want the government to have that much power. And if it does, it's always going to lead to something bad. I guarantee it.
Thank you so much for being here today. Shelley, wonderful to have you in the studio again.
Thank you, Paul.
Charles, and thank you, Biff and MK and Charlie. Exactly, Charlie. Thank you for everyone listening. Thank you for calling, and listen in every Thursday, 11 a.m. We'll be talking about something next week. And we want to hear what you have to say. It's not about us talking, it's about you calling in.
Oh, it's about me talking.
Yeah, well. Bye, everybody.